The firelight caught on the edges of stolen pages, illuminating words that could save lives or damn her completely. And Victoria Monroe knew she was pushing her luck, hiding behind the abandoned livery stable on the edge of Nevada City, California, reading medical journals that did not belong to her. It was October of 1876, and the autumn wind carried the scent of pine and dust through the Sierra Nevada foothills. She had taken 3 journals from Dr. Pemberton's office 2 weeks ago, when he had been too drunk to notice her slipping past his consultation room. The man was a charlatan who inherited his practice and his title from a father who actually knew medicine. But these journals were genuine, shipped from Boston and Philadelphia, filled with knowledge she craved like water in a desert. Victoria shifted on the hard ground, pulling her worn shawl tighter against the evening chill. At 22, she had spent the last 4 years teaching herself everything she could about healing. Her mother had died when she was 18 from a fever that the town doctor could not treat, had not even tried to treat properly. The memory still burned. Her father, a miner who broke his back in a cave a year later, had followed her mother to the grave, leaving Victoria with nothing but a determination that no one else would die from ignorance if she could help it. She had been stitching wounds, setting bones, and delivering babies in secret for 2 years now. The miners and their families came to her back door after dark, paid her in whatever they could spare. She never asked for much. But she needed to learn more, needed to understand the science behind the healing, and men like Pemberton hoarded their books like gold while people suffered. The sound of boots on gravel made her freeze. She closed the journal quickly, her heart hammering as she pressed herself against the weathered wood of the stable wall. Most people avoided this area after dark. The stable had been abandoned after its owner died in a shooting 3 years back, and the building was slowly collapsing in on itself. "I know someone is back here." The voice was male, deep and calm, with a trace of amusement that made her bristle. Saw the firelight from the road. Victoria considered running, but her small campfire would give away her direction. She had 3 stolen journals in her possession, evidence enough to get her arrested if this stranger decided to make trouble. She stood slowly, brushing dust from her skirt, and stepped around the corner of the stable with her chin raised. The man stood about 10 feet away, silhouetted against the last purple light of dusk. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing the practical clothing of a working cowboy, worn denim pants, a simple cotton shirt, a leather vest, and a hat that had seen better days. As he stepped closer, the firelight revealed a face that was handsome in a rugged, weathered way. He looked to be in his mid-20s, with brown hair that curled slightly at his collar and eyes that were assessing her with more curiosity than threat. "Evening," he said, tipping his hat. "Did not mean to startle you. Name is Benjamin Tucker. Most folks call me Ben. You are trespassing," Victoria said, keeping her voice steady. "This is private property." His eyebrows rose slightly and the corner of his mouth twitched. "Fairly certain this stable does not belong to anyone anymore, and if we are being technical, you are also trespassing." She felt heat rise to her cheeks but refused to look away. "What do you want?" Was riding past, saw the light, wanted to make sure nobody was in trouble. His gaze dropped to the journals she was trying to hide in the folds of her skirt. "Those are interesting reading materials for a campfire. They are none of your concern." "No, I suppose they are not." He studied her for a long moment, and she could not read his expression. "But I am curious why a young woman is hiding behind a falling-down stable reading medical journals by firelight instead of sitting in a warm house with a proper lamp. Again, none of your concern." Victoria took a step back toward her fire. "You should go." "Probably should," Ben agreed, but he did not move. "You steal those." The direct question caught her off guard. She could lie, but something in his steady gaze made her think he would see through it. The man who owns them is a drunk who inherited his title and does not use the knowledge inside them to help anyone. People are dying because doctors here are incompetent or corrupt or both. So yes, I took them, and I would do it again. She expected judgment, maybe threats. Instead, Ben nodded slowly. Fair enough. What are you learning? The question was so unexpected that Victoria found herself answering honestly. Tonight, I was reading about infection prevention, about how washing hands and instruments in carbolic acid solution can prevent surgical infections, about how so many deaths could be prevented with simple cleanliness. And you use this information when I can. She hesitated, then added, I help people, in secret, the ones who cannot afford a real doctor or who the doctors will not treat. Ben was quiet for a moment, looking at her with an expression she could not quite decipher. Then he said, My sister nearly died last year from childbed fever. Doctor said there was nothing to be done, that it was God's will. A neighbor woman came instead, washed everything in vinegar and hot water, made sure the room was clean. My sister lived, and so did the baby. Where was this? Up in Montana Territory. I came down here looking for work, just got into town today. He glanced at the stable, then back at her. You have more of those journals hidden somewhere. Victoria tensed. Why? Because if you are going to teach yourself medicine from stolen books, you should at least have enough light to read by that you do not ruin your eyes. He reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a small leather pouch. I got paid today for delivering horses from Sacramento. Was going to spend some of it on a hot meal and a bed, but seems to me you could use it more. He held out the pouch, and Victoria stared at it like it might bite her. I do not want your charity. It is not charity, it is an investment. When she did not take the pouch, he stepped closer and set it on the ground between them. You use that to buy yourself some proper lamp oil, maybe a book or two if there are any worth buying in this town. You keep learning, keep helping people. That seems like money well spent to me. You do not even know me. No, Ben agreed. But I know what it looks like when someone cares enough to risk everything for what is right. That is worth supporting. He tipped his hat again and turned to leave. Victoria found her voice before he had taken 3 steps. Wait. He turned back, and in the firelight, she could see the genuine kindness in his face. It had been so long since anyone had offered her something without wanting something in return. Thank you, she said quietly. I am Victoria, Victoria Monroe. Pleasure to meet you, Victoria Monroe. His smile was warm and real. I will be in town for a while, working at the Turner Ranch outside town. If you ever need anything at all, you can find me there. He left then, walking back toward the main road with an easy, confident stride. Victoria stood frozen for a long moment, then bent to pick up the leather pouch. Inside were several coins, more money than she usually saw in a month. She closed her fist around them, feeling the weight of a stranger's faith in her. She did not see Ben Tucker again for 2 weeks, though she thought about him more than she wanted to admit. She used some of his money to buy lamp oil and a proper medical reference book from a traveling merchant who passed through town. The rest she saved, tucked away in the loose floorboard under her narrow bed in the boarding house where she rented a single room. Life continued its familiar pattern. She worked during the day as a seamstress, a respectable job that barely paid her rent. At night, she studied and tended to those who sought her help. A miner with a broken arm, a child with a fever, a woman who needed herbs to prevent another pregnancy because one more baby would kill her or leave her existing children without enough food. Victoria was stitching a gash on a logger's forearm when someone knocked on her door one evening in early November. It was past midnight, and she had learned that knocks at this hour meant emergencies. She finished the last stitch, bandaged the logger's arm, and sent him out the back way before opening the front door. Ben Tucker stood on her doorstep, his hat in his hands, his face tight with worry. "I need your help." She did not hesitate. "What happened?" "One of the ranch hands got kicked by a horse. His leg is broken badly. Bone came through the skin. The boss wanted to send for Dr. Pemberton, but I know what that man is. I told them I knew someone better." Victoria's heart began to race. A compound fracture was serious, the kind of injury that could easily turn fatal from infection. "How long ago did it happen?" "About an hour. I came straight here." She was already moving, gathering her supplies into a canvas bag. Clean cloth, her precious bottle of carbolic acid, needles and thread, strips of wood for a splint, laudanum for the pain. "Do they know I am not a licensed doctor?" "I told them you know what you are doing. That is enough for them." Ben watched her work, his presence somehow both calming and energizing. "I would not have come if I did not believe you could help him." The ride to the Turner Ranch took 30 minutes on Ben's horse, with Victoria sitting behind him, her arms around his waist, her medical bag clutched tight. She could feel the solid warmth of him through his shirt, the steady rhythm of his breathing. He rode fast but carefully, aware of his precious cargo. The ranch was larger than she expected, with a sprawling main house and several outbuildings. Ben led her to the bunkhouse where a group of men stood outside, smoking and talking in low voices. They fell silent when they saw her. "This is the doctor," one of them asked, his skepticism obvious. "This is Victoria Monroe," Ben said firmly. "She is going to help Jack. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me after." The men exchanged glances but stepped aside. Inside the bunkhouse, a young man lay on a bed, his face pale and sweaty with pain. His right leg was bent at an unnatural angle, and she could see the white of bone protruding through torn flesh. Someone had wrapped it in a bloody cloth, but otherwise it was untreated. Victoria set down her bag and rolled up her sleeves. "I need hot water as much as you can bring me. Clean water, boiled if possible. I need towels, sheets, anything clean you have. I need a lantern, too, if you can manage with good light. And I need everyone out except for 2 strong men who can hold him still." Ben immediately started giving orders and the men jumped to follow them. Victoria knelt beside the injured man, whose name was Jack, and looked into his frightened eyes. "I am going to set your leg and clean the wound. It is going to hurt, but I will give you something for the pain first. You need to trust me." "Are you really a doctor?" Jack asked through gritted teeth. "I am someone who knows how to fix your leg and keep you from dying of infection," Victoria said honestly. "That is what matters right now." She gave him a careful dose of laudanum, enough to dull the pain without stopping his breathing. While it took effect, she laid out her instruments and prepared her carbolic acid solution, the sharp smell filling the small space. Ben returned with 2 large pots of steaming water and an armload of clean linens. "I can help," he said quietly. "Tell me what you need." For the next 3 hours, Victoria worked with steady hands and fierce concentration. She cleaned the wound thoroughly with the carbolic solution, ignoring Jack's groans even through the laudanum. She carefully aligned the bone, feeling for the correct position with gentle fingers while Ben and another ranch hand held Jack still. She stitched the torn flesh with small, precise stitches, then splinted the leg with wooden slats and careful wrapping. When it was done, Jack had passed out from pain and exhaustion, and Victoria's arms were shaking with fatigue. She washed her hands one more time in the carbolic solution, then slumped back against the wall. Ben brought her a cup of water. "You did it." "He is not safe yet," Victoria said, drinking gratefully. Infection is still a risk. I will need to check on him daily, change the dressings, watch for fever. Then you will stay here, Ben said. We have a spare room in the main house. The boss will not mind, not when you just saved his ranch hand's leg, maybe his life. Victoria wanted to argue, but she was too tired, and the practical part of her knew he was right. She could not provide proper care if she had to ride back and forth from town every day. Just until he is out of danger. Just until then, Ben agreed, but the smile he gave her suggested he was already thinking further ahead than that. The Turner Ranch became Victoria's world for the next 2 weeks. She stayed in a small but comfortable room on the second floor of the main house, taking her meals with the family and checking on Jack 3 times a day. The young cowboy healed well, his wound staying clean. No signs of the deadly infection that killed so many with similar injuries. Ben was a constant presence. He brought her hot water for washing bandages, helped her gather herbs from the hillsides, and sat with her in the evenings while she read her medical journals by lamplight. They talked about everything and nothing. He told her about growing up on a small ranch in Montana, about his parents who died in a harsh winter when he was 19, about his sister who married a good man and had 3 children now. She told him about her own losses, about her determination to learn healing, about the frustration of being a woman in a world that did not believe women could be doctors. "Why do you not go to medical school?" Ben asked one evening. They were sitting on the porch of the main house, watching the sun set over the rolling hills. "There are schools that accept women now, I have heard." "There are a few," Victoria admitted, "but they are back east and they cost money I do not have. Even if I could afford it, I am not sure they would accept me without proper schooling first. I only finished 8th grade before my mother got sick." "You are smarter than half the doctors I have met, and you care more than all of them combined." Ben's voice was warm with conviction. "If you wanted to go, truly wanted to, there would be a way." "Maybe," Victoria said, but she did not let herself hope for impossible things. On Jack's 15th day of recovery, Victoria declared him well enough that she could return to town and check on him every few days instead of constantly. The bone was setting properly, the wound was healing clean, and his color had returned to normal. The Turner family tried to pay her, but she refused to take more than a small amount for her supplies. "You gave our boy his leg back," Mrs. Turner said, pressing coins into Victoria's hand. "That is worth more than money, but please take it anyway." Ben drove her back to town in a wagon, her medical bag and her journals beside her. The November afternoon was cool and clear, the kind of day that made California seem like paradise. They rode in comfortable silence for a while before Ben spoke. "I have been thinking," he said, keeping his eyes on the road, "about what you said about needing books and supplies, about wanting to learn more. Ben, you already gave me money. You do not owe me anything else." "This is not about owing." He turned to look at her then, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "Victoria, in the 2 weeks I have known you, I have watched you save a man's leg, teach yourself medicine from stolen books, and work harder than anyone I have ever met. You should have every chance to become the doctor you want to be. The world does not work that way for women like me. Maybe it should. Maybe it could with help." He pulled the wagon to a stop on the side of the road and turned to face her fully. "I have some money saved. Not a fortune, but enough. I want to use it to buy you books, proper medical texts. I want to help you get what you need." Victoria stared at him, unable to speak. The offer was too generous, too impossible. "Why would you do that? You barely know me. I know enough." His hand reached out, hesitated, then gently took hers. "I know that you are brilliant and brave and determined. I know that you could save lives, dozens of them, hundreds maybe, if you had the proper training and tools. And I know that I have never met anyone like you, Victoria Monroe. I want to help you because what you are doing matters, and because I care about you." The last words hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable. Victoria felt tears prick at her eyes. "Ben, I cannot ask you to spend your savings on me." "You are not asking, I am offering." His thumb brushed over her knuckles, a gentle touch that sent warmth through her whole body. "Let me do this. Let me buy you every book you need." She wanted to argue, to protect her pride, to refuse charity, but she looked into his eyes and saw not pity or obligation, but genuine belief in her. Faith that she could be something more than a secret healer hiding behind an abandoned stable. "All right," she whispered. "All right." His smile could have lit the whole valley. He raised her hand to his lips and kissed it gently, a gesture that was both old-fashioned and intimate. "We will start tomorrow. There is a bookshop in Sacramento that might have medical texts. We can take the stage, spend the day looking. I have to work tomorrow. I have 3 dresses to finish for Mrs. Henderson. Then the day after, or whenever you can spare the time." Ben released her hand reluctantly and picked up the wagon reins again. "I am not going anywhere, Victoria. I will be here as long as you need me." The trip to Sacramento came 5 days later, on a crisp November morning that promised rain. Victoria had finished her sewing work and left word with her boarding house that she would be gone for the day. She met Ben at the stage station wearing her best dress, a dark blue calico that she had sewn herself, her hair pinned up neatly under a simple bonnet. The stage ride took 3 hours, bouncing over rough roads through foothills and farmland. Ben entertained her with stories about the horses he had delivered, about ranch life, about a dog he once had that could supposedly predict thunderstorms. She found herself laughing more than she had in years, feeling young and light in a way she had almost forgotten was possible. Sacramento was busy and loud, full of people and commerce. Ben led her through streets crowded with wagons and horses to a bookshop tucked between a hardware store and a land office. The shop was small but crammed floor to ceiling with volumes of every description. The proprietor, an older man with spectacles and ink-stained fingers, looked up when they entered. "Help you folks. We are looking for medical textbooks," Ben said. "Anatomy, surgery, disease treatment, anything you have." The man's eyebrows rose. "That is specialized material, expensive too." "You training to be a doctor, young man?" "Not me," Ben said, gesturing to Victoria. "Her." The proprietor's expression shifted to skepticism, but Ben's steady gaze did not waver. After a moment, the man shrugged. "Got a few things in the back, come on." He led them to a dusty corner where medical texts sat neglected. Victoria's hands trembled as she pulled down volume after volume. Gray's Anatomy, a surgery manual from a Philadelphia hospital, a comprehensive guide to diseases and their treatments. Books she had dreamed about but never thought she would own. "How much for all of these?" Ben asked, pointing to the stack Victoria had accumulated. The proprietor did some calculating. $40 for the lot. It was an enormous sum. Victoria opened her mouth to say it was too much, but Ben was already counting out bills from his wallet. "We will take them." "Ben," Victoria said urgently, "that is too much. You do not have to buy all of them." "Yes, I do." He looked at her with such warmth that her protest died in her throat. "Every book you need, remember?" That was the promise. They left the shop with Victoria carrying a heavy parcel of books wrapped in brown paper, her heart so full she thought it might burst. Ben bought them lunch at a restaurant, a luxury Victoria rarely allowed herself. They talked about the books, about what she would learn from them, about how she could use the knowledge. "You could open a real practice," Ben said over coffee. "Once you have studied enough, once people know what you can do. The medical board would never license me. And even if they did, People in Nevada City already have doctors. People have charlatans and drunks, Ben corrected. They do not have someone who actually cares whether they live or die. You start helping people openly, word will spread. You are already doing it in secret. Imagine what you could do if you did not have to hide. It is a nice dream. Victoria stirred sugar into her coffee, watching the crystals dissolve. But dreams do not pay rent or buy supplies. Not alone, they do not. But with help, with support, maybe they can become real. Ben reached across the table and took her hand. I believe in you, Victoria. I wish you could see yourself the way I see you. How do you see me? The question came out barely above a whisper. Brave, brilliant, beautiful, someone who is going to change lives. His fingers tightened on hers. Someone I am falling in love with. The words hung between them, honest and exposed. Victoria's breath caught. They had known each other less than a month, but in that time, Ben had shown her more kindness, more faith, more genuine care than anyone in her adult life. He saw her not as a woman who needed to be controlled or a seamstress who should know her place, but as someone capable of greatness. I think I am falling in love with you too, she admitted, and the smile that broke across his face was worth more than all the medical books in the world. They kissed for the first time on the stage ride back to Nevada City, a gentle press of lips that quickly deepened into something more passionate. Victoria had been kissed before, clumsy, fumbling from boys who wanted something from her. This was different. This was a meeting of equals, a promise of partnership, a recognition that they were building something real together. Winter settled over the Sierra Nevada foothills, bringing cold rain and occasional snow. Victoria spent every spare moment studying her new books, absorbing anatomy and surgical techniques, disease processes and treatments. She continued her secret practice, but word was spreading. More people came to her door, willing to trust the young woman who set bones and stitched wounds with steady hands. Ben visited town whenever he could spare time from the ranch, which was often. He brought her supplies she needed, helped her organize her growing collection of medical equipment, and sat with her in the evenings while she studied. Their courtship was unconventional, built around medical texts and patient consultations, but it felt more real than any romance Victoria had read about in novels. In December, Dr. Pemberton was found dead in his office, choked on his own vomit after a drinking bout. The town had no doctor. Victoria expected someone from Sacramento or another city to take over the practice, but weeks passed, and no one came. People started coming to her openly, desperate for help. She treated a child's croup with steam and careful nursing. She delivered 3 babies in 2 weeks, all healthy. She removed a bullet from a miner's shoulder and saved his arm from amputation. Every success built her reputation, but also her fear that official censure would come, that someone would report her for practicing medicine without a license. Ben found her pacing her room one evening in early January, wringing her hands with anxiety. What is wrong? Everything. Nothing. I do not know. She turned to face him. I am practicing medicine openly now, Ben. Anyone could report me. I could be arrested, fined, maybe jailed. I am risking everything every time I help someone, then make it legal. Ben closed the distance between them and took her shoulders gently. Marry me, Victoria blinked. What? Marry me, he repeated, his eyes bright with conviction. I have been thinking about this. As my wife, you would have my income to support you. You could reduce the hours you spend sewing, spend more time studying and treating patients. We could move to San Francisco, you could apply to the Women's Medical College. Or we could stay here, build a real practice together. I would handle the business side, you would do the healing. We would be partners in everything. Ben, you cannot marry me just to solve my legal problems. I am not marrying you to solve legal problems. He cupped her face in his hands, his touch infinitely gentle. I am marrying you because I love you, because I want to wake up next to you every morning and hear about whatever fascinating thing you learned from your books, because I want to support your dreams and build a life together. The timing is practical, yes, but the reasons are about love. Tears spilled down Victoria's cheeks. I love you too, so much, but I do not want you to sacrifice your life for mine. It is not a sacrifice, it is a choice. Ben kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the tip of her nose. You are the most extraordinary person I have ever met, Victoria Monroe. Spending my life helping you become everything you are meant to be is not a sacrifice. It is a privilege. So will you marry me? Yes. The word came out as a sob and a laugh at the same time. Yes, absolutely yes. They married 3 weeks later in a simple ceremony at the small church in Nevada City. Victoria wore a dress she had sewn from cream-colored silk, the nicest thing she had ever owned. Ben wore a new suit that made him look impossibly handsome. The ranch hands from the Turner spread attended, along with some of the families Victoria had helped. It was a small gathering, but warm and genuine. Mrs. Turner hosted a celebration dinner at the ranch afterward, with roasted beef and fresh bread and a cake that was slightly lopsided but delicious. Jack, the ranch hand whose leg Victoria had saved, stood and made a toast. To Victoria and Ben, he said, raising his glass. I would not be standing here today if not for her skill and his faith. May they have a lifetime of happiness together. To Victoria and Ben, the room echoed, and Victoria felt Ben's hand squeeze hers under the table. They spent their wedding night in the room Victoria had stayed in when treating Jack, which Mrs. Turner had prepared with fresh linens and wildflowers. Ben was gentle and patient, treating Victoria with reverence as they learned each other's bodies. It was nothing like the clinical descriptions in her medical texts. This was heat and connection, vulnerability and trust, two people choosing to give themselves to each other completely. Afterward, lying tangled together in the narrow bed, Ben traced patterns on her bare shoulder. What are you thinking about? The future, Victoria admitted. About what we will build together. Tell me what you see. A real practice. A place where anyone can come for help, regardless of whether they can pay. A surgery with clean equipment and proper supplies. She turned to face him. Maybe eventually a teaching clinic, where other women who want to learn medicine can study. We will build it, Ben said with such certainty that she almost believed him. Every bit of it. We will build the life you dream of. They moved into a small house in Nevada City in February of 1877, using money Ben had saved and a loan from the Turners. The house had a parlor that Victoria converted into a consultation room, with a sturdy table for examinations and cabinets for her growing collection of medical supplies. She hung a simple sign outside. V. Tucker Medical Treatment All Welcome. The name felt strange at first. Victoria Tucker. She was someone's wife now, but Ben made it clear that did not mean she had to shrink or hide. He encouraged her practice, helped her with everything from bookkeeping to building examination tables. He worked at the Turner Ranch during the day, but came home every evening to have dinner with her and hear about her cases. They fell into a rhythm that felt like the most natural thing in the world. Victoria would treat patients, study her medical texts, and expand her knowledge. Ben would manage their finances, maintain their home and equipment, and provide the steady support that let her thrive. At night, they would share a meal and their days, then retreat to bed where their passion showed no signs of dimming. Spring brought new challenges. A measles outbreak swept through the mining camps, and Victoria worked around the clock to treat the sick children. She set up a quarantine area in the town's old community hall, teaching mothers how to manage fever and prevent dehydration. Out of 32 cases, only one child died, an infant who had been too weak to fight the disease. Even one death wounded her, but Ben reminded her that without her intervention, many more would have been lost. In May, a letter arrived from the Women's Medical College of Pennsylvania. Victoria had written to them months ago, before the marriage, inquiring about admission requirements. The response was encouraging. With her demonstrated practical experience and her obvious dedication to study, they would consider her application despite her limited formal education. She would need references, an entrance examination, and money for tuition and living expenses. "We should do it," Ben said immediately when she showed him the letter. "Apply, take the examination, go to Philadelphia. Ben, the tuition alone is $300 a year. We do not have that kind of money, and it would mean leaving you for months or years. We will find the money. I can work extra, we can save, maybe take another loan." He took her hands, his expression serious. "And you would not be leaving me, I would come with you. Philadelphia needs ranch hands same as California does, or I could find other work. I will not let you give up this opportunity because you are worried about me." Victoria felt tears threatening again. "You would really come with me? Leave the ranch, leave California? I would follow you anywhere." Ben pulled her into his arms. "You are my home, Victoria. Wherever you are is where I belong." They began saving immediately, setting aside every spare penny. Victoria took on more patients, charging those who could afford to pay a fair rate. Ben took extra work breaking horses, a dangerous job but one that paid well. They lived frugally, eating simple meals and wearing mended clothes, but they were happy. Every coin in their growing savings jar represented another step toward Victoria's dream. In July, a wealthy mine owner's wife came to Victoria with a difficult pregnancy. Mrs. Ashford had lost 3 babies before and was terrified of losing this one. The Sacramento doctors had told her to stay in bed and pray, but Victoria recognized the symptoms of what her medical texts called placenta previa, a dangerous condition where the placenta blocked the birth canal. She treated Mrs. Ashford with careful monitoring and bed rest, visiting the woman's mansion 3 times a week throughout the summer and fall. When labor began in October, Victoria knew immediately that a normal delivery would kill both mother and baby. She had read about cesarean sections in her books, knew the theory, but had never performed one. The surgery was considered a last resort, almost always fatal, but doing nothing was certain death. Victoria explained the situation to Mrs. Ashford and her terrified husband. "I can try to deliver the baby surgically," she said honestly. "I have never done this procedure, but I have studied it extensively. There are risks, serious risks, but without surgery you will both die." Mrs. Ashford gripped her hand. "I trust you, do whatever you must." Victoria performed the cesarean section on the Ashfords' dining room table, converted into a surgical suite. Ben assisted her, following her instructions exactly, holding lanterns for better light and handing her instruments. She worked with steady hands and fierce concentration, using every technique she had learned from her books. She made the incision, delivered a tiny but breathing baby girl, then stitched Mrs. Ashford closed with careful layers. Both mother and baby lived. Mrs. Ashford recovered slowly but completely, and the infant thrived. Word of the miraculous surgery spread through Nevada City and beyond. Victoria's practice exploded. People traveled from other towns to see the woman doctor who could perform miracles. Mr. Ashford paid Victoria $200 for saving his wife and child. It was more money than she had ever seen at once, enough to cover most of a year's tuition at the medical college. Combined with their savings, They now had enough to make Philadelphia a real possibility. "We could go in the new year," Victoria said, staring at the money. "Apply for the fall 1878 term. I could take the entrance examination, see if they will accept me." Ben wrapped his arms around her from behind. "Then that is what we will do. We will go to Philadelphia, and you will become Dr. Victoria Tucker officially." But fate had other plans. In November, Ben was breaking a particularly difficult horse at the Turner Ranch when the animal reared unexpectedly. Ben fell hard, landing on his left arm with a sickening crack. The ranch hands brought him home, his arm bent at an unnatural angle, his face gray with pain. Victoria's hands shook as she examined her husband's injury, but she forced herself into clinical detachment. The break was bad, both bones in the forearm fractured, but it was not compound. She could set it, splint it, and if they were lucky, it would heal straight. She gave Ben a dose of laudanum and whiskey, then set the bones with quick, firm movements while he bit down on a leather strap to keep from screaming. She splinted the arm carefully, wrapping it with precision, then sat beside him while he drifted into an exhausted sleep. For 3 days, Victoria barely left Ben's side. She watched for fever, for signs of complications, managing his pain and changing his splint as the swelling decreased. On the 4th day, when it was clear he would heal well, she allowed herself to cry, releasing all the fear and tension she had held inside. Ben woke to find her sitting beside the bed, tears streaming down her face. "Hey," he said softly, reaching for her with his good hand. "I am all right. You fixed me, same as you fix everyone else." "I was so scared," Victoria admitted. "When I saw you injured, I was terrified. All I could think was that I could not lose you." "You will not lose me." He pulled her down beside him on the bed, tucking her against his uninjured side. "I am too stubborn to leave you, and you are too skilled to let me go. We are stuck with each other." She laughed through her tears. "Good, because I do not want to do any of this without you." Ben's arm healed well over the winter, regaining full strength and mobility by March. But the accident had spooked them both, made them realize how fragile life was. They talked long into the night about Philadelphia, about the medical college, about what they truly wanted. "I want you to have that education," Ben said. "I want you to have the credentials and training you deserve." "I want that too," Victoria agreed. "But I also love what we have built here. The practice is thriving, people trust me, I am helping them. If we leave for Philadelphia, all of that stops. And what happens to these people who depend on me? They would find another doctor eventually. Would they? It has been over a year since Pemberton died, and no one else has come." Victoria sat up in bed, pulling the quilt around her shoulders against the spring chill. "I have been thinking, what if I do not need to go to Philadelphia? What if I can learn what I need right here?" "How?" "Correspondence courses, medical journals, books. I could write to doctors back east, ask for guidance and mentorship through letters." She turned to face him, her eyes bright with possibility. "I will never have the official credentials, but I could have the knowledge. And here in Nevada City, people already accept me. They do not care if I have a diploma on my wall. They care that I can heal them." Ben considered this carefully. "Are you certain? I do not want you to give up your dream because of me or because you feel obligated to stay." "I am not giving up my dream. I am reshaping it." Victoria took his hand. "My dream is to be a healer, to save lives, to use medicine to help people. I am already doing that. A diploma would be nice, but it is not necessary for me to continue growing and learning. What I need is right here. My practice, my patients, and you." "Then we stay," Ben said, pulling her back down into his arms. "We build the best practice in California right here in Nevada City. And if you ever change your mind, if you ever want to try for that medical school, we can still do it." "Deal." Victoria agreed and sealed the promise with a kiss. Their practice grew steadily over the next 2 years. Victoria's reputation spread throughout the Gold Country. She treated everything from routine illnesses to complicated surgeries, always studying, always learning, always pushing herself to be better. Ben expanded their home to include a proper surgery room with equipment ordered from San Francisco. They hired a young woman named Sarah to help with cleaning instruments and managing supplies. In the spring of 1879, Victoria realized she had missed 2 monthly courses. She knew the signs, had diagnosed pregnancy in dozens of other women, but it took her a week to accept that she was experiencing them herself. When she finally told Ben, he swept her into his arms and spun her around until she was dizzy and laughing. "We are having a baby," he said, wonder in his voice. "You are going to be a mother, and you are going to be a father." Victoria touched her still flat stomach. "Are you ready for this? With you, I am ready for anything." The pregnancy was both fascinating and frustrating for Victoria. She understood the biological processes, knew what to expect, but experiencing it herself was entirely different from reading about it or observing it in patients. She continued working throughout, treating patients until 2 weeks before her due date in January of 1880. Labor began on a snowy evening, contractions that started slow and steady. Ben was beside himself with worry, pacing and offering to send for another doctor from Sacramento. Victoria laughed at him between contractions. "I am fine. This is normal. I have delivered dozens of babies." "But you are not the one giving birth," Ben argued. "Let me send for help. You are my help." Victoria gripped his hand as another contraction hit. "I need you here with me. I trust you." Ben delivered their son just after midnight with Victoria's guidance, following her instructions even as his hands shook. The baby was perfect, small but healthy, with a lusty cry that filled their bedroom. Ben cut the cord with steady hands, then placed the baby on Victoria's chest, both of them crying with joy. They named him James after Ben's father. Victoria had expected to feel different after becoming a mother, but mostly she felt grateful. Grateful for her healthy son, for her capable husband, for the life they had built together. She returned to her practice 6 weeks after James's birth, bringing the baby with her in a basket while she saw patients. Ben had reduced his hours at the ranch to help with childcare, and they managed the juggling act with humor and teamwork. Sarah proved invaluable, content to rock James while Victoria stitched wounds or set bones. Life fell into a new pattern, busier and more chaotic but deeply satisfying. Victoria treated patients, studied medicine, and raised her son. Ben worked enough to keep them financially stable while being a devoted father and husband. They were happy in a way that felt both hard-won and utterly natural. In the summer of 1881, a young woman arrived in Nevada City, seeking Victoria specifically. Her name was Margaret, and she had traveled from San Francisco with a letter of introduction from the Women's Medical College. "They told me about you," Margaret explained over tea in Victoria's parlor while James played with blocks on the floor. "A woman practicing medicine successfully in the Gold Country. I want to learn from you." Victoria studied the younger woman, seeing her own determination and hunger for knowledge reflected back. "I am not a licensed physician. I cannot offer you official training." "I do not care about official. I care about real." Margaret leaned forward. "I want to learn healing from someone who actually does it, who sees patients and saves lives. Will you teach me?" Victoria looked at Ben, who was holding James and trying not to influence her decision. But she could see the encouragement in his eyes, the faith that she could do this. "Yes," Victoria said. "I will teach you." Margaret became the first of several young women who came to study with Victoria over the years. She taught them everything she knew, sharing her hard-won knowledge freely. Some went on to formal medical schools, using Victoria's mentorship to prepare. Others stayed in the West, opening their own practices in small towns desperate for medical care. By 1885, Victoria had 3 apprentices working with her, and their expanded practice served patients from 5 counties. Ben had left the ranch entirely to manage the business full-time, handling accounts and supplies and the constant stream of people seeking help. James was 5 years old, bright and curious, already learning his letters and showing an interest in his mother's medical books. Their family grew again in 1886 with the birth of their daughter, Elizabeth, and once more in 1888 with another son, Michael. The house expanded along with the family, rooms added as needed. It was chaotic and loud and utterly wonderful. Victoria never did get that medical degree from Philadelphia, never received official credentials from any institution. But her walls were covered with letters of thanks from patients she had saved, from families she had helped. She had delivered over 200 babies, performed countless surgeries, trained a dozen women in medicine, and saved more lives than she could count. On a cool evening in October of 1890, Victoria sat on the porch of their home with Ben, watching their 3 children play in the yard. James was teaching Elizabeth how to identify medicinal plants, while Michael dug enthusiastically in the dirt. 14 years had passed since that night Ben had found her reading stolen journals by firelight behind an abandoned stable. "You ever regret it?" Victoria asked, taking Ben's hand. "Choosing this life with me instead of something easier." Ben looked at her with the same warmth that had been in his eyes since the day they met. "Not for one single second. You are the most remarkable person I have ever known, Victoria Tucker. Getting to be part of your life, helping you build this practice, raising these children with you, it is the greatest honor I could imagine. I could not have done any of it without you." Victoria leaned her head on his shoulder. "When you offered to buy me those books, you gave me more than supplies. You gave me faith that my dreams were possible. You were always going to achieve great things. I just got lucky enough to be there when it happened." Ben kissed the top of her head. "And we are not done yet. We have years ahead of us, more lives to save, more students to train, more adventures to have. More books to buy," Victoria teased. "As many as you want. That was the promise, remember? Every book you need for as long as you need them." They sat together as the sun set over the Sierra Nevada, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. Their children's laughter rang out across the yard. Inside the house, Victoria's medical library had grown to fill an entire room. In town, 3 of her former students now ran their own practices. Countless people walked around healthy because of knowledge she had stolen from journals and transformed through dedication and love into healing. It was not the life she had imagined when she was a frightened 22-year-old hiding in the shadows, hungry for knowledge and terrified of discovery. It was better. It was real. It was built on partnership and faith, and the simple promise of a cowboy who saw her potential and chose to believe in it. The years that followed brought both challenges and triumphs. In 1892, California passed new medical licensing laws that threatened to shut down practitioners without formal degrees. Victoria faced a choice: fight for an exemption based on her years of successful practice, or finally pursue formal credentials. Ben encouraged her to fight. "You have proven yourself 100 times over. Anyone with eyes can see you are a better doctor than most men with diplomas." Victoria hired a lawyer from Sacramento, a woman who specialized in fighting for women's rights. Together, They built a case based on Victoria's extensive experience, her successful outcomes, and the testimonials of hundreds of patients. The medical board hearing in San Francisco was contentious, with established physicians arguing that allowing unlicensed practitioners would undermine professional standards. But Victoria's lawyer presented records of every surgery, every delivery, every life saved. She brought patients who testified that Victoria's care had saved their lives when licensed doctors had given up on them. She presented statistics showing that Victoria's maternal mortality rate was lower than the state average, her surgical infection rate nearly non-existent thanks to her rigorous cleanliness standards. The board granted Victoria a special license based on demonstrated competency and years of successful practice. It was an unprecedented decision that opened doors for other experienced practitioners, particularly women, who had been locked out of medicine by gender discrimination and educational barriers. With her practice legally secured, Victoria expanded further. She opened a small teaching clinic in 1894 where women could receive both treatment and education. She began writing articles for medical journals, sharing her techniques and observations with the broader medical community. Some male physicians dismissed her work, but many more recognized the value of her practical experience and innovative approaches. Ben remained her constant support, managing the increasingly complex business of their expanding medical practice. He negotiated with suppliers, handled correspondence, and ensured their family life did not get lost in the demands of Victoria's growing reputation. He was there for every milestone: James's graduation from high school, Elizabeth's first piano recital, Michael's endless questions about how things worked. In 1898, James announced he wanted to attend medical school. At 18, he had grown up watching his mother heal people, absorbing medical knowledge from infancy. Victoria helped him prepare his applications, and he was accepted to the Medical College of the Pacific in San Francisco with a scholarship. "I want to be like you, Ma," James said the day before leaving for school. "I want to help people the way you do." "You will be better than me," Victoria said, hugging her tall son. "You will have the formal education I never got, combined with the practical wisdom I can teach you. You will do extraordinary things." Elizabeth, at 12, declared she wanted to be a doctor too. Michael, at 10, was still deciding between medicine and engineering. Ben joked that they had created a dynasty of healers and problem solvers. The new century arrived with celebration and hope. Victoria was 46 years old, her practice thriving, her family healthy. She had trained over 20 women in medicine, many of whom now practice throughout California and neighboring states. Her innovations in surgical cleanliness and maternal care had been adopted by hospitals as far away as Chicago. But the work she was proudest of was the simple, daily practice of healing. The miners who came to her with injuries, the families who trusted her with their children, the women who sought her help with difficult pregnancies. Every patient was a person, a life that mattered, and she treated each one with the same care she had given that very first ranch hand whose leg she had saved all those years ago. In 1902, the town of Nevada City honored Victoria with a special ceremony, declaring her the official town physician and presenting her with a plaque recognizing her 26 years of service. The entire community turned out, people whose lives she had touched in countless ways. Ben stood beside her as the mayor made his speech, his hand holding hers just as it had through everything they had built together. At 52, he was gray at the temples but still strong, still steady, still the man who had found her reading stolen books and chosen to believe in her potential. "I could not have imagined this," Victoria whispered to him as the crowd applauded. "That night you found me behind the stable. If someone had told me all of this would happen, I would not have believed them." "I would have," Ben said. "I saw who you were from the very beginning. Brilliant and determined and capable of anything. I just got to be part of the journey." James graduated from medical school in 1903 and returned to Nevada City to join his mother's practice. Working alongside her son, teaching him the nuances that textbooks could not capture, was one of the greatest joys of Victoria's life. Together they treated patients, discussed cases, and pushed each other to be better physicians. Elizabeth entered the Women's Medical College of Pennsylvania in 1904, fulfilling the dream Victoria had once set aside. Ben and Victoria traveled to Philadelphia to help her settle in, walking through the very campus Victoria had once hoped to attend. Standing in those halls, Victoria felt no regret for the path not taken. Her life had unfolded exactly as it should, bringing her to this moment where she could give her daughter the opportunities she herself had transformed into something different but equally meaningful. Michael chose engineering and enrolled at the University of California in 1906, determined to build better medical equipment and improve hospital design. Even in choosing a different path, he remained connected to the healing work that defined his family. As their children built their own lives, Ben and Victoria found themselves with more time together. They took long walks in the hills where Ben had once gathered herbs for her. They sat on their porch in the evenings, talking about everything and nothing. After nearly 30 years of marriage, they still found new things to learn about each other, new depths to explore. "What is your greatest accomplishment?" Ben asked one evening in 1908. They were sitting by the fire in their parlor, Victoria reading a new medical journal while Ben worked on accounts. Victoria considered the question seriously. "Professionally or personally?" "Either." "Both. Professionally, I think the teaching clinic. Knowing that women I trained are out there saving lives, spreading knowledge, that is legacy beyond anything I could do alone." She looked up from her journal. "Personally, it is you, us, building this partnership, this family, this life together. Everything else flowed from that." "I would say the same." Ben set down his pen and came to sit beside her on the sofa. "The best thing I ever did was offer to buy you books that day in Sacramento. Not because of what it led to, though that is remarkable, but because it was the beginning of truly knowing you. Of building a life with the most extraordinary woman I have ever met." "I love you," Victoria said, the words still carrying the same weight they had when first spoken over 30 years ago. "I have loved you since you saw me in that stable and chose to believe instead of judge. And I love you." Ben kissed her gently. "I have loved you since I saw a young woman brave enough to steal knowledge and determined enough to use it to save lives. I will love you until my last breath and beyond." The years continued their steady march. James married in 1910 and gave them their first grandchild in 1911, a daughter they named Victoria. Elizabeth graduated from medical school in 1912 and opened a practice in Sacramento specializing in women's health. Michael's engineering innovations led to improvements in surgical equipment that were adopted by hospitals throughout California. Victoria gradually reduced her practice, as arthritis made surgery more difficult, but she continued seeing patients and training new students well into her 60s. Ben remained by her side, his hair white now but his devotion unwavering. They had been married 40 years, together through everything life had thrown at them. In 1920, Victoria was invited to speak at the Medical College of the Pacific's graduation ceremony, the first woman to receive such an honor. She stood before a room full of young doctors, including several women, and spoke about the importance of compassion in medicine, of seeing patients as people rather than cases. "I never attended medical school," she told them honestly. "I learned from books and experience, from trial and error, from the patients who trusted me when I had little to offer but determination. But whether you learned in a classroom or at a bedside, the most important lesson is this: medicine is about people. It is about easing suffering, preserving life, offering hope when there seems to be none. Never forget the human being behind the illness. That is where true healing begins." The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Afterward, several young doctors, both men and women, approached her to say her work had inspired them to pursue medicine. Victoria thanked them, humbled and grateful that her journey had meant something beyond her own life. Ben and Victoria celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary in 1927 with a party that brought together family, former students and patients from across California. James gave a toast that brought tears to everyone's eyes. "My parents taught me that love is not just about romance, though theirs has always been romantic," James said, raising his glass. "They taught me that love is partnership. It is supporting each other's dreams, believing in each other's potential, building something together that neither could create alone. They taught me that love is showing up every day, through the hard times and the joyous ones, and choosing each other again and again. Ma, Dad, thank you for showing all of us what real love looks like." Victoria looked around the room at the life they had built. 3 successful children, 8 grandchildren, dozens of former students who had gone on to become doctors and nurses and healers in their own right. A medical practice that had saved thousands of lives, a partnership that had weathered every storm and emerged stronger. "Did we do all right?" she whispered to Ben as the party continued around them. "We did more than all right," Ben said, squeezing her hand. "We did extraordinary. And we did it together, just like I promised we would." The final years were gentle and full of grace. Victoria retired from active practice at 74 but continued to consult on difficult cases and mentor young doctors. Ben was slower now but still sharp, still the steady presence he had been for over 50 years. They spent their days surrounded by family, reading together, taking slow walks, remembering the adventures they had shared. On a spring morning in 1932, Ben did not wake up. He passed peacefully in his sleep at 78, his hand still holding Victoria's after 55 years of marriage. The grief was profound, but so was the gratitude for the extraordinary life they had shared. Victoria lived 3 more years, staying in the home they had built together, surrounded by children and grandchildren who loved her fiercely. She spent her final months writing down her memories and medical observations, determined to leave a record of the knowledge she had accumulated. On a cool October evening in 1935, exactly 59 years after Ben had first found her reading stolen journals by firelight, Victoria passed away at 81. She was surrounded by family, her mind clear until the end, her last words a whispered, "I am coming, Ben." James found his mother's journals after her death, dozens of volumes documenting cases, techniques, observations, and personal reflections. He edited them into a book that was published in 1937, The Journals of Victoria Tucker, a woman physician's life in the Old West. It became required reading in medical schools across the country, a testament to innovation, determination, and the power of one person's commitment to healing. But beyond the professional legacy, beyond the lives saved and students trained, Victoria and Ben's greatest legacy was the love they had shared. A love that began with a cowboy's simple offer to buy books for a woman who needed them. A love built on mutual respect, unwavering support, and shared dreams. A love that proved that the greatest adventures are the ones we build together, day by day, choice by choice, promise by promise kept. In Nevada City, their home became a museum celebrating pioneer medicine and women in healthcare. The medical clinic they founded still operates, staffed by descendants of their children and students. Their story is told to new generations as an example of what is possible when people believe in each other, when they choose partnership over convention, when they refuse to let circumstances limit their dreams. And on quiet evenings, locals swear they can sometimes see two figures walking hand in hand through the hills above town. A woman with a medical bag and a man who looks at her like she hung the stars, still together in whatever comes after, still building their extraordinary love story one moment at a time.